I'm going to share a story with you today, and that story starts when I was 6 years old. As you can see, I haven't grown much from that day. Some parts of me have actually stopped growing, including my hair. But I grew up in New Zealand, on a very remote part of New Zealand, on a sheep farming community, and this was my life after school, every day, exploring. I grew up loving exploring, and I always dreamed that one day I'd be an explorer. But you know, in New Zealand, we have a national sport. We have a national religion, actually, which is a sport. And that religion is rugby. So when you grow up in New Zealand, as a small boy, you want to be an All Black. You want to be the best rugby players in the world. The All Blacks are the best rugby team in the world. I wanted to be an All Black. I wanted to play. They're much better than Australia, Sean. He's interrupting me here. Yeah. He's going to walk out in a minute. Stay, it's okay, it'll get better. So I wanted to be an All Black. I wanted to be the best player in the world, but there's a lot of competition in New Zealand to be an All Black. Fortuitously, when I was 21 years old, I moved to Singapore here, and I started playing for the Singapore national rugby team. For 3 years, I was the best rugby player in my position in this country. And for any of you who know what it's like to be the best in a particular field, you'll know that it's very difficult to get into that position. But what's even more difficult is staying number one once you're there, because you have so much competition nipping at your heels. And that competition caught me up after 3 years, as I broke my leg and dislocated my ankle playing in front of 20,000 people in the Hong Kong Sevens. And as I got carried off on a stretcher and loaded into an ambulance, within 30 seconds of that accident, I saw my replacement coming onto the field. And I was no longer number one. And that's the reality of being the best at something. 25 years of my rugby playing career was over. I had to look for a new passion in life. I went back to the world of exploration. I went back to the world of exploration, and I started walking across countries, riding my bicycle across continents, paddling across oceans, and I climbed a lot of mountains around the world. And not many people my height get to say this, but I was the tallest man in the world for 10 minutes in 2012 when I stood on the summit of Mount Everest. Thank you very much. Thank you. But look, when I came back down from the summit, I realized I was the 2,500th person to stand on the summit of Mount Everest. And I longed to be number one again. And this is when I realized there's two ways of being number one in life. The first way is by being the best at something. And the second way is by being the first to do something. And those two methods have very different mindsets and approaches. And that's what I want to share with you today. How you can be number one by being the first at something. Because everybody in this room could be the first in your own unique field. But if we're all vying for the number one spot, there's only room for one person there. There is much more opportunity to be the first at something in life. So, the first step in the explorer's mindset is you need to be bitten by a bug. What is a bug, ladies and gentlemen? A bug is a bold, unique goal. For me, my bug was to make a completely human-powered journey, all the way from Singapore, up in the top left, back to my home country of New Zealand. A journey of 12,000 kilometers, using no engines or no sails, just my own human power. And when I first told people about this, they thought I was absolutely nuts. They thought I was crazy, especially when I told them how much it would cost, $400,000 for this expedition. Especially when I told them how long it would take, 1 year. I estimated it would take me 1 year of continuous travel. And thirdly, when I told them the risk and uncertainty involved in it and the danger. Large portions of this journey had never been done before. So I didn't even know if it was even possible. And what I learned about that, getting bitten by a bug, the bold, unique goal, is that it's okay if people think your bold, unique goal is crazy. So how about you? How about you guys out there? How many of you have been bitten by a bug? That's great to see. How many of you have a bold, unique goal that maybe you're scared to tell people about because they might think it's crazy. What I've learned, it's nice to see, what I've learned that it's okay if they think it's crazy, okay? Because everybody thinks something's crazy before it's been done. And then they're like, oh, now I see. So if you have that bug, if you've been bitten by the bug, the next important step is not to jump immediately into your journey. And your bold, unique goal, it might be changing your career. It may be setting up a new business. It may be changing your body shape. It may be changing your relationship. Okay, it can be anything. But don't jump straight into the journey, especially if it's a really bold goal. I emphasize a planning period called the pre-mortem. Some of you will know what a post-mortem is. I hope it hasn't happened to you before. Pre-mortem is the opposite of a post-mortem. Post-mortem, we determine the cause of death. When you pre-mortem your project, you put yourself into the mindset that it has failed. Your new business venture has failed. It's actually failed. Your new direction, your new journey has actually failed. Now imagine, what are the reasons it actually failed? What are those reasons? List down those reasons it failed. And then list down what are the ways of minimizing the reasons that it failed. And how would we react in the event that actually those instances did occur? That's called the pre-mortem. For me, on this bold, unique journey, my pre-mortem took 4 years. 4 years, every single day of planning and preparation, until finally I came up with a 50-page document which highlighted every single reason how it would fail, how we'd minimize the risk, how would we respond. Until finally, after that 4 years of pre-morteming, it was time to set off. January the 3rd, 2017, we dipped our oars in the water together with my teammate Charlie, and we set off from Singapore, rowing our boat. And we rowed that boat 2 hours on, 2 hours off, sharing, alternating shifts, all day long, all through the night, day after day, week after week, month after month, until we hoped to arrive in Australia, the first stage of our goal. We haven't got there yet, but thank you anyway. After 7 days, we rowed over the equator. We left the northern hemisphere and entered the southern hemisphere. And one of the most terrifying parts of those first few weeks of rowing were these massive electrical storms that would hit us early hours of the morning. The lightning would smash into the water all around the boat. If one of those bolts of lightning hit the boat, we would be dead. And I can tell you, during these storms, we were petrified, and we did not want to be on that boat. We wanted to be anywhere else. And there was only one thing that kept us going through these times, and that was a slogan written on the back of the cabin door. Because those storms, they never ever lasted. We have to keep reminding ourselves. No storms ever last. And if you set off on your really bold and unique journeys, you're going to hit stormy times. The stormy times are not the times to give up. I excuse the language on the bottom sentence there, but this is the realities of the situation. When you hit stormy times in your own journeys, when you set out off on your own bold, unique journeys, you're going to hit trouble. You're going to hit trouble times when sometimes you wonder, what the hell am I doing here? Why did I make this choice? That's not the time to give up. After 78 days of seeing the sunrise and the sunset from the boat, we reached Australia. This is a short video of what we saw. Hopefully the AV guys will have the volume up for this.
The guys are now less than 100 miles from Darwin Harbour, so we're leaving port and then we'll guide them to the harbour entrance tomorrow. Oh, I think it's terribly awesome. I'm just overwhelmed by their capacity to manage such a human feat.
Nautilus, this is Simpson's Donkey, go ahead.
Oh, good morning guys, and welcome to Australia, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Nautilus. Very nice to hear some friendly voices. We're currently 9.5 miles from Cullen Bay Marina and really working hard to try and get there on this next tidal cycle. Over.
As the sun rises, we start seeing on the horizon Darwin glimmering.
Well, first views of Darwin. Pretty
excited about arriving there 4 to 5 hours' time.
This was something that no one had ever done before, so I never let myself think too much about what would happen after we reached Darwin, and I just focused everything on trying to get there. So I didn't feel the need to jump up and down and celebrate, and for me it was just the fact that we'd actually done it. And now the expedition actually had a future. So if you want to ask me how I felt, it was relief.
So I took all that relief, ladies and gentlemen, and I loaded it onto my bicycle. It wasn't meant to be funny. My teammate Charlie left, as was planned at that part of the expedition, and I started riding across Australia, day after day by myself. If any of you know about Australia, it's a very big continent to cross. There's very few people in the middle. It's a lot of deserts and a lot of outback. And the roads in Australia are very, very long and very, very, very straight. For 3 weeks, I rode along these roads until something amazing happened. I came to a corner. It was unbelievable. I'd almost forgotten what a corner looked like. I didn't know how to turn the handlebars anymore. They'd frozen up. I was like, who put this here? But after 45 days of cycling, I reached the east coast of Australia. I've been traveling for 123 days, 8,200 kilometers of human-powered travel. Now I had the last portion of the journey ready before me, stage 3, to cross the Tasman Sea, also the most dangerous part of the whole expedition. And I had 2 choices here, and I'm going to ask you to help me make the decision about what choice to take. The choices are crossing the Tasman Sea. Option 1, the mid-Tasman route, where the seas are slightly less stormy, where the water's slightly more warmer, but the wind blows in different directions constantly, and I can't row my boat against the wind, and I was chosen to do this last part solo. Or the second option is option number 2, the southern Tasman route, where the waters are much colder, it's much stormier, but the wind blows in the right direction. 10 people had attempted option 1 before. Only 2 people had attempted option 2, the stormy route. And one of those people was this guy here 10 years ago in this tiny kayak. For 30 days he battled it out in that kayak, and these were the conditions that he faced.
My father was in the Navy, and I told him he was going to try and paddle a kayak to New Zealand, and his face just went ashen. And I said, "What's going on, Dad?" And he said, "I was there in a naval boat once, and this boat's antenna is 30 metres above the water level. And when the 2 destroyers were in the troughs of the waves, we couldn't see the antenna of the other boat. So the size of swells that you get out there is enormous. It's cold water, it's big swells, it's wild winds. It's a very intimidating piece of the world to be out there on your own."
So let me ask you, who would take option 1, the less stormy route? Put your hand up. Okay, and who would take option 2? Okay, so there's about 20%. I am going home. I'm trying to get home. That's the whole point of the journey. It's called rowing home. I chose option 1, just like those very intelligent people who chose option 1 here as well. And this is what happened. I left Coffs Harbour. I got blown south for 10 days. That's hundreds of kilometres, that red line you see. I got blown south until day 13. I'm 400 kilometres offshore by myself and my boat. I got hit by a massive storm. The boat flipped upside down, and then the wind turned around from the opposite direction. I got blown north. And for 5 days, I couldn't even get out of the cabin. On day 18, when I finally could re-emerge, I found all the wind was coming from New Zealand, not blowing me to New Zealand. And I got blown back in 24 days later into the coastline of Australia, further away from New Zealand than where I even departed. And when I got back, ladies and gentlemen, I had a long time to reflect on my decision. And I realized the decision I had was a decision we all have in life. I'd chosen the normal route. I'd chosen the normal route because 10 other people had tried that before, even though 9 of them had failed. But I chose it just because other people had done it before, and I expected to get some kind of different result. I'm going to be returning to Australia in 3 weeks' time. And this time, I'm going to be thinking like an explorer and going to the bottom of Australia and attempting to finish my expedition through route number 2. And I want to finish today by asking you a challenge, ladies and gentlemen. You've been at a great event today. Lots of wonderful speakers sharing their wisdom and experience with you. And when you leave, you have 2 choices as well. You can either go back and do the normal stuff you've always been doing, or you can take the explorer's route. The explorer's route is more risky. It's got more uncertainty, for sure. But it's also got potentially much more reward. And if you are going to take the explorer's route, then I'd like to remind you of the mindsets that you need. You need to get bitten by a bug. You need to come up with that bold, unique goal. Some of you have already got it. You need to share it with people. You need to thoroughly plan your pre-mortem in intense detail, every single reason why your project could possibly fail and ways you can minimize the risk of that happening. And there's one third thing that I haven't shared yet. You need to have belief. Even if no one else believes in your bold, unique goal when you share it with people, you need to believe in it. Even when you start your journey and you get tipped upside down in a storm, or you get blown back and pushed back further away than where you even started from, you need to have the belief that you can continue. And the final thing is, you must never forget, if you are going to take on a bold, unique journey, adopt the explorer's mindset, you will definitely hit rough weather. And when those rough weather periods come along, always remind yourself, if you can just hang on, no storms ever last. So please dip your oars in the water and start rowing. Thank you very much. Thank you.